All right, good evening. It's Tuesday night, and you know that means I'm having a catch tonight with Joey Witt. Joey's in stereo. I love it. I'm left speaker. Joey Witt is on the right. So, and musically, you can even tell me what that means later because I know like some of the recordings that
We're
I
hard
loved.
panned. We're
Yeah,
hard panned right now.
there's some old records that I have where you only hear the vocal on the left side and the
Yeah.
instrumentation on the right. And I always thought those were the more interesting records.
Yeah, the mono and stereo, the difference between mono and stereo. Yeah.
So which
That's
one
pretty
am
cool.
I? Am I mono or stereo?
Right now we'd be in stereo because we're coming through different sides. Mono is
That's it.
usually just one or the other, right?
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. Or mono is just one down the middle. It's one mix down the middle.
So yeah,
So in stereo.
if you haven't figured out yet, I'm the non-musician who doesn't know things and
and I'm the fake musician.
oh, come on. Well, Joey Witt's our guest tonight. We're going to talk music, baseball, everything. At some point tonight, I'm going to convince Joey, or he's going to try to convince me why I should move to Connecticut. I've been thinking about East Coast, for the last 4 or 5 years, and now that's a new wrinkle. Is that you shared with me last week that you're equally distant to Boston as you are New York?
Yes, that's true. That is one of the good things. I joke about not moving here, but it is a nice state. It is kind of a cool place to be in between all the action. So it's really nice.
Well, I think as a friend, you can give me pros and cons, and I'll make a good decision.
Yeah, give me some time to let it marinate, and then I'll come up with something here.
Sure. All right. So, first thing I want to talk with you tonight, obviously, and this is kind of a running theme on the show because it's a baseball group. We all love baseball.
Yeah.
You played professionally.
Yes, sir.
What was like as a kid, I guess, growing up? What was the first thing, I guess, earliest memory that attracted you to want to just play baseball and just to kind of fall in love with the sport?
I think it was my father and my uncle Rick used to have catches outside, and they'd be firing the ball around, and they had these Rawlings Pro H baseball gloves, these Heart of the Hide rolling, and they just looked like something so cool, and I wanted one so bad. Um, and on the same token, my mother had lived in Florida for a period of time in the 70s, and she had a lot of friends who were old Yankees from those really good 70s teams, Reggie Jackson, Paul Blair, those kind of guys. So it's always been about baseball in our house, and I came from good baseball stock, I suppose, or athletic stock anyway. My uncles all played. They were wartime guys, so they played semi-pro, what was called semi-pro, and that sort of thing. My dad went on the gridiron. He was a football player, but always loved baseball, and I just fell in love with it from an early age. I can't remember a time where I didn't want to be a baseball player, and I just loved it. I was obsessed. Everything. God Almighty. My parents, God bless them, they bought me probably hundreds of baseball gloves. I just loved the gear. I loved the smell of the grass, everything about it. It was intoxicating to me at such a young age. I loved it so much. But yeah, I would say my uncle playing catch with my father outside, having a catch. It's pretty good. Pretty good story. Quite literally, they would just be buzzing the ball around, and it was just amazing. Then they throw me a pop up every once in a while, so it was cool.
When I was a kid, I think one of the biggest thrills for me was my dad, who, he didn't love baseball. He loved that I loved it. But
Yeah,
one of the things that he did when he'd come over is he would, and in my head, nobody could do it higher than he. He would throw the ball as high
mm-hmm.
as he could, where
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
I would lose sight of it. And then like halfway down, I'd kind of catch it and I'd
mm-hmm.
make the play and he'd kind of compliment me. And then as I got a little older, I'd try to go like behind the back or
Sure.
try to, Ricky Henderson kind of deal.
Yeah,
But
man.
you had mentioned baseball gloves. Like for me, as a young player and someone who fell in love with the game at a fairly young age, I was always more enchanted with that side of the game, the defense, having a
Yeah,
glove, playing
yeah.
catch, like hitting. I was competent, I was okay, but I felt like I was good and I really enjoyed having a glove and being out there, and that was always my favorite part. Um,
Yeah.
do you still have any of those old mitts?
I've got a bunch of them, and they're all kind of stored away in in a storage unit somewhere, unfortunately, that they don't get much action, much daylight these days. But I do have a bunch of them, and it's funny to see how, from the younger age, you have all different kinds. You have your fielder's glove. My first one ever was it was a Cal Ripken Jr. signature Rawlings, and it kind of looked like my dad and my uncle's, the Pro H, but it was, one of the imported ones, not the American-made one. But I still have that glove, and I still have like some of the important ones from over the years. Like this is my first high school glove, or this was my first catcher's mitt in college, and that sort of thing. But it is funny how they all went from like all kinds of different gloves, first baseman, outfield, infield, and then a bunch of catcher's mitts there in the middle. And then I have two gloves. I finished as a pitcher. Then I had two, and they're virtually brand new because that experiment didn't last very long. But yeah, they're around. They're pretty cool to see. And you start getting different ones as you get older, different brands, all that sort of thing. But I was definitely a Rawlings guy, I think, historically speaking.
I think as a young kid, I migrated towards Regent, which they don't even make those anymore.
I've never even heard of those before.
The reason I loved Regent was my favorite Met as a kid was Lenny Dykstra, and he had this
nails, yeah.
His glove it looked like a fishnet. It was so big, and and this was before the internet and where you could all of this information was very accessible. I had to like really pay attention one game, and I was probably 11 years old. And I said, Regent. So I would say to Mom, we need to get a Regent, and it needs to be huge. And obviously he threw with his left hand, I throw with my right. But I found one that's very similar. And I had that glove probably from 8th grade through about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And then one of the kids I mentored, I used to be a trainer at a credit union. We'd bring in these kids, and we'd have them for a summer or whatever. He got a scholarship to a school, I think, down south. And he throws left-handed, so he can't even use it.
Yeah.
But I said, here, as a good luck charm, I want you to have this. This has been basically my glove for like 30 years.
That's
so
awesome,
he has that one, and I used to call it the Gamer because it was just like, even if you look at it, it looks like a 85-year-old man. It just like it looks like it's been through a couple wars.
Game worn,
has bad knees, and it's I still love that glove. I actually later tonight I'll probably throw a picture up so people can see kind of what it looks like. I mean, it's huge.
That's awesome.
I would actually think that, because I know Major League Baseball has limitations as to how big a glove can be.
Yeah, length.
Now.
I think it's 13. 13 is the length.
This might be pushing it.
Yeah. It's up there. You got one of those 15 and a half.
I don't know, but it was
baskets.
People would when I was younger, they would want to see it, and they're like, "This is too big. This is how do you play with it?" And it was very flimsy.
Yeah.
Because I was playing all day, every day for like 10 years, and it has no real game left. It's just a statue.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to ask you. I caught a couple times.
Yeah.
It was the hardest position. I was terrible at it. Actually, I remember one time the umpire got hit in the jewels.
Oof.
And he just kind of looked at me like, dude.
Not for you.
Why are you catching?
Yeah,
when did you know that, A, you liked the position, and B, that you were pretty decent at it?
I think my favorite player was a guy called Mike Stanley. I don't know if you remember Mike Stanley.
Sure.
When I was a kid, he was kind of an AL East journeyman, and he played for the Yanks, then went to the Sox, then back to the Yanks, the Blue Jays. I think he spent some time in Oakland as well. But Mike Stanley was my guy, and he caught DH first base. So I thought that was really cool. Like any kid who I think is a little more coordinated than maybe the rest of the little league team, you played shortstop, center field, pitch. But I wanted to throw the gear on and give it a shot behind the plate. So I was probably about 10 or 11. And it gave me an excuse to get a different kind of glove. So I jumped back there and had a little bit of skill with it. And then I think I kind of still moved my way around the diamond, played a lot of outfield. When I got to high school, let me rephrase that. When I was playing travel baseball, I played for a team called the Connecticut Dogs, and we had another pretty good catcher by the name of Kurt Casale on our team. I don't know if you know Kurt, but he's in the big leagues with he's been with the Marlins. He was with the Giants last year, I think, but he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, yeah. So me and him were both catchers on this team called the Connecticut Dogs, and when one of us wasn't either pitching or playing short, the other one of us would catch. So high school comes around, and tryouts are coming. It was, well, what position do you want to play? I kind of just figured, well, 900 kids ran to shortstop, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go behind the dish. And I didn't spend much time at the freshman tryouts. It kind of rose through the ranks pretty quick over there in high school, and I ended up catching there for 4 years and got recruited as a catcher. I played outfield in the summertime, though, which I really loved playing right field. I thought that was an absolute blast to kind of just hang out and rope a little bit. So that was great fun. But catching and becoming a defensive catcher, like you just said, that I think took more time. And that really happened in college, where I became much more focused on the defensive aspect and how to help the team rather than just trying to, be a statue behind the plate and hit the ball as far as you can in high school. Once the game elevated, I think you kind of have to adjust your mindset a little bit there. And then, so I'd say, my freshman year, I redshirted, and I was fortunate enough to watch a guy who was really talented at St. John's. And his name was Brendan Monahan, and he played professional baseball for a number of years in the Orioles chain and I think some independent ball. But he was very, very talented. He actually ended up coming back to coach my senior year, so that was nice, kind of a full circle thing. But like you were just hitting on, Joey, the defensive-minded position, I guess the defensive aspect of catching is the most important one. Your offensive numbers, you get what you can, but being back there and kind of being in control of the pitching staff and controlling the game or the running game, and that I really enjoyed that. And I didn't mind the contact part of it because it was the most contact, I think, aside from the middle infielder. So I liked that too.
I've always been fascinated with the catcher position. I mean, I think true fans are aware that most of the managers, like if you take all the managers in Major League Baseball, the position that they come from more often than not is catcher.
That's true.
And I think it's because they have the best understanding of both sides of the game.
Yeah.
The offensive side, but they're also handling pitchers. I mean, boy, I could name, Sosha, Osmus, all these guys.
Joe Torre, yeah.
Torre, yeah, they were such great game managers, like on the field, that it's almost like a natural progression to be a manager to go into coaching afterwards.
Certainly, yeah. I think that has something to do with just calling a game. From an early age, you're kind of learning to control the staff and dealing with personalities. A lot of the other positions, if you're playing shortstop and you're really worried about when the ball comes to you, getting it across the diamond or, turning a double play, that sort of thing. But from the mindset of a catcher, I think you're really focused on, obviously working with your staff and understanding the mindset or the mind frame of whoever's on the mound and working with them. And that could change from inning to inning or pitch by pitch, depending on who's on the bump. So behind the plate, I think you're kind of a psychologist and you're also kind of a coach, and you're really, everybody's looking at you. So I think that's the only position on the field where everybody's kind of focused on the plate, on the catcher. So I think that really has something to do with the fact that a lot of us got into coaching. I got into coaching myself immediately after playing, and I think that it's very helpful knowing kind of the situational game, knowing where everybody has to be rather than just worrying about where you have to be. And
sure,
I think that's why a lot of catchers end up becoming pretty good coaches.
Yeah. We have a couple of members in this group that, along with you, also played professionally.
Nice,
and then the rest of us kind of dreamed of it as a kid.
Sure.
Just the idea of, playing every day, the travel and all that. Let me know. Walk me through kind of that first realization when he got signed. That,
oh man, yeah.
I'm a pro ball player. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that was one of the happiest, I think, probably up to right now, the happiest moment I think of my life. Hearing myself on the radio is pretty close to that, though. That was pretty amazing. But getting that phone call was unbelievable. And I think from the time I was somehow, I think everybody who plays at that level or gets to sign a professional contract has known pretty much their whole life that's what they're going to do, whether they're manifesting it or they understand that they have a measure of talent. I don't think anybody's really surprised when it happens, but in my case, it was a little bit different. There was a time, the last couple of years of college where I was really wondering if I had a good enough stick to get there, because I was basically a defensive catcher my last 2 years. But I was downstairs at my parents' house, and the draft literally had just ended, and I was like, you know what? I put up some monster defensive numbers. I know I could play at the next level. It's really a matter if somebody else is going to take a shot here and sign me or draft me or whatever. So my junior year of college, I literally forgot how to hit a baseball. I had a really good sophomore year. Had a great summer. I think I hit 350 my sophomore year of college, and then going into my junior year, kind of felt like a big dog there, and felt like I was gonna probably just walk into some pro team after junior year, and that you're quickly humbled in baseball. That didn't so much work out. I don't even know if I hit my weight my junior year, but we won the Big East tournament, which was first and foremost, that was the most satisfying baseball moment of my life, was winning the Big East tournament with my teammates there. St. John's hadn't won it since 1997, and 2010 we kind of came through and won it for Coach Blankmeyer. That was an amazing, amazing feat. We actually beat University of Connecticut too, so I felt good to stick it to those guys a little bit. But yeah, I would say that after that year, I kind of just let it. I was so stressed out. I was talking to my father about this the other day. That year I was so nervous about, getting drafted and the pressure to be, an All-American or All Big East or all that stuff. And none of it happened, which was like probably the best thing that could ever happen to me, was that none of it did happen after that year, because it was humbling and it made you kind of realize what's really important and that life does go on. And it's not, this game is, it's beautiful and it's wonderful, but don't worry so much about yourself in this game. Worry about the entire game, So next year I came back, went away for the summer down in North Carolina, played in the Coastal Plains League, had a blast down there. Baseball got fun again. My senior year rolled around, and I was like, well, whatever happens, we're going to let it, let the chips fall where they may. Had a pretty good year. I hit a lot better than I did the year before, but I didn't hit up to my potential. Draft comes around in June, and I get the phone call still, and I'm still hearing the buzz. So I'm sitting there looking at the computer screen, name here, all the teams that I heard from or been contacted by or picking catchers, and I'm going, oh my god. And then you see people who are getting picked up, and you're like, God, all your friends are getting signed, and when's this going to happen? Is it going to happen? Draft comes to an end. I go, God damn it. All right. Well, that's it. Go downstairs, pick up my guitar. My cousin comes over. He's like, oh boy, what do we got to do something. So we start strumming guitars and playing. Then all of a sudden my phone goes off and it lights up and a strange number. And I'm going, I looked up to the sky and I go, please God, let there be a chance like maybe I missed something on the screen or whatever. And it was a scout called John from the Houston Astros. And I remember months or years before, Coach Blankmeyer at St. John's goes, the team who signs you, you're not going to hear a word from them before the draft. So don't worry about anybody being at the game, or if somebody tells you to show up, don't worry about it. The team who signs you, you're never going to hear a word from them. Sure enough, John called, never heard a peep from him in the 4 years that you're looking at getting signed there. And he offered me a contract with the Houston Astros. I think we invited some family over that night, and I was on a plane 2 days later to Orlando. So it happened so fast that I don't even know if I got to really enjoy it immediately until the off season or the next year when the next spring training ran around. It was just so fast, and all of a sudden you're down there, and it's a completely different environment from college baseball. I will say that. And it's a job. 100%, what you see on TV is not the typical everyday for professional baseball players from rookie ball to the big leagues, there's a big gap,
Sure.
big gap. Yeah.
Well, tell us some of the specific differences from playing college ball to now you're a professional ball player.
Yeah.
Obviously, us as fans, we're not seeing a lot of that kind of behind the scenes stuff. What were some of the differences, and how did it affect you as a player?
I think for me, who was, a free agent signee and reporting to the lower levels of rookie ball, and it was a long shot for me to get to the big leagues or something like that. And it has been done. I know guys who played at St. John's who were non-drafted free agents that pitched in the big leagues for a while. But the biggest difference between college and professional baseball was in college, you are very much focused on team and winning and that kind of environment where it's more about us rather than I.
Sure.
And I think that's why we were incredibly successful at St. John's. I mean, we're the most successful baseball team in the Northeast United States. We're always top 25 ranked in the country. And I'm very proud to be an alumni of that school and play for the man that I did. And develop the relationships I did with my teammates over the years. So that was an incredible experience. But when you go from an atmosphere like that into the professional ranks, and just this is me speaking here, it's more about focused on how you can advance, not so much about teamwork or laying a bunt down to advance a runner. It's more like, hey, how many home runs are you going to hit this year and boost your stats up so you get to the next
Sure.
level and ultimately get to the big leagues to make more money. I think that was the biggest thing. You're on your own. Nobody's holding your hand. In college, you have team workouts. You've got, team practices. You've got tutors making sure you're getting your schoolwork done. You've got an entire team of people to make sure you graduate and to assist you in whatever you need, it gets done. In pro ball, it's definitely more on your own. And I think that's why a lot of these high school kids, it's a hard adjustment. Because I don't know if I could have done that at 17 when I graduated high school. That would have been a big jump coming from, a all boys private school here in Connecticut going down to Florida, and you're dealing with people from all over the world, which is one of the best parts about pro baseball too, though, is the relationships you make with guys from, Latin America, or I had a teammate from Rome, or even the guys from out in California. There's a big difference in culture amongst all of us, which I loved that part about pro ball, though. I did love that part. That was a lot of fun. And you do make great relationships.
Yeah, I was going to ask,
Yeah.
what are some of the, I guess, best takeaways from being a member of the Houston Astros organization for as long as you were?
Well, what was really cool about those few years was, and I know they've gone through a lot of stuff. I've never, for the record, never experienced any of the bad stuff that happened with that organization the last couple of years. But in the early 20 teens, when I was with that chain, it was nice to see all these guys who they invested so much in, your Altuves, your Springers, Correas, those guys. That organization was in shambles before Jim Crane took over the ownership. To watch those guys kind of get to where they did, regardless of what happened, it was pretty special, pretty amazing to see that they had the right guys, the right players, the right teams. They were still out there hitting. I mean, that game's not very easy, even if you know what's coming. So it was nice to see those guys and play a very small part in that, whether it was catching bullpens and spring training games or, working with guys who were rehabbing. It was really, really, it was an incredible experience. You wouldn't trade it for the world. All the hours you spend as a kid working for it, when you get to put on a big league uniform and get your picture taken and all that, it's pretty special.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you spent a little bit of time too in the Nationals organization as well.
Very briefly. So my playing career kind of came to an end because of concussions behind the plate.
Okay.
And I don't know if I had ever had any before, but my senior year of college, the opening weekend, we used to do a Big East, Big Ten challenge down in Florida, and I ended up getting hit in the temple by a pitch. I had my helmet on and all that, but it really rung my bell pretty good. And I remember getting the blinks and the high pitch noise in the ears, and I think I played another inning, and I told Blanks, like, hey, I need a minute here to get my mind together. So I slept that night, whatever, went out and played the next day against University of Michigan and took another one in the ear hole, strangely. And I kind of felt a little funky after that for a few days, but didn't say much, just kind of figured it was normal. Fast forward to that summer, I was catching against, must have been the Marlins. We were playing in Jupiter. I think it was the Marlins. It must have been the Marlins. Go down a block of pitch, and one of the players for them took a swing, and the backswing hit me underneath I used to wear the two-piece catcher's mask.
Okay.
And it hit me right behind the ear underneath the side of the head, and I kind of got startled, stood up, tapped him on the shoulder, said, "Don't worry about it." 2 pitches later, I did it again. It was strike 3. Kid drills me again in the back of the head. Somehow, the last thing I remember is flipping the ball to the pitcher so he could throw it to first base and get the guy out because it was down in the dirt. And then I remember waking up on the bus and just talking to the trainer. And he was like, "Yeah, I think it's going to be a minute before you get back in there." So I spent a little bit of time on the DL. Next spring training rolls around. Took another one, foul ball off the mask. And it was just lights out after that. I had kind of worked my way back, played in a couple of games, struggled just really with the mental side of things where you're like, wow, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a professional baseball player. I don't feel like one right now because I'm getting I'm down in extended. I'm like trying to make a roster, trying to get out of extended after being on the DL. It was tough, man. It was really tough from the mental health aspect of it. Now I believe it was the end of the season comes around and, they're making cuts and doing all that sort of thing, having the phone calls. And, I walk in the office one day and just had a discussion, and it was probably best to leave the Astros organization. And from there, I got on a plane like the next day, flew up to Connecticut, and my family friend, he was kind of acting in sort of like an agent, putting connections together, stuff like that. He called and said, "Hey, the Angels want to see you pitch. They liked your arm. What do you think?" And I went, "Bruce, I have not thrown off a mound that wasn't something that wasn't a knuckleball since 2002, man. I don't know about that." And he goes, "No, to hell with it. Just let it loose. Come down next weekend." So I was in Virginia the next week working out for the Angels. They kind of monitored things. I started developing a pretty good repertoire on the bump, working with some pitching coaches. And finally, we were kind of like, maybe we should get another club involved, see what's up, if there's anything to this. So we called the Nationals, and they really were impressed, and they liked what they saw. So I was with them. I signed in January with them and spent the next few months in their organization. But I started noticing every time I'd exert myself or work out really hard,
Yeah.
I would get these crippling migraine headaches, and I'd have to kind of just shut it down. It wouldn't stop. It wouldn't go away. And I don't know if I made the mistake of telling the trainer or if it was a godsend, because he might have saved my life too. But we kind of went through the concussion protocol, and it just wasn't looking good. So we made a tough decision to hang it up. And that was kind of the end of my professional baseball career, which was really tough to swallow. That was really one of the hardest moments of my life, is hearing that you can't be a professional baseball player anymore, because I didn't know anything else aside from baseball.
And I can relate, not on the same level, but when I was 12 years old, I was hit by a car, and
oh
I was
man,
pretty much told at the time, I pretty much shattered my right shoulder, and I can't really show you right now because I'd have to go out of frame, but this, from the shoulder to my elbow is the same length as it was in 1987 because it stopped growing.
No,
so
shit.
it's like a 4.5-inch difference. It's probably more than that now, but
oh man.
I've always related to the line in Happy Gilmore where he shows up at a tournament and he says, "I'm a hockey player, but I'm playing golf today."
Yeah.
Because I had a 23-year career in banking, and sometimes I'd show up at trainings or seminars, and I would say, "I'm a baseball player, but I'm doing banking training today." So
that's awesome.
I can kind of relate to that in a little bit. You had mentioned earlier that you did some coaching. Now, did that was that a transition almost immediately out of leaving the Nationals organization, or was there a little gap in between?
It was pretty quick. I think that I'm trying to remember now. It's been a while. I went down to Florida for spring training there. and I came back pretty quickly, and I just made a bunch of phone calls trying to figure out what am I going to do. I mean, at this point, I had a PhD in baseball, and I really didn't know anything else. I never worked another job in my life. My first job was baseball player. So I think I called my high school and I talked to my old high school coach, and he said, yeah, come, talk to the fellas, work with the fellas. And I ended up helping out with the JV and varsity teams over there, and kind of was like, I like this. This is fun. It's not so bad. Then I ended up coaching a summer team, and I don't know how many people know this, but the United States Coast Guard Academy is in New London, Connecticut. So they were looking for a pitching coach, and just happened to work out that I put my resume in, and that was probably one of the, outside of playing baseball, one of the greatest experiences of my life was working at the United States Coast Guard. They were just the best players you can ask for. The attitude was amazing. The character of the kids at that place is unbelievable. They're just they're amazing. The entire staff, from the athletic director down to the people working in the equipment room to the strength and conditioning folks, everybody was just absolutely wonderful. An incredible experience. And it's really cool that you get to represent one of the nation's military academies. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
So I coached there for a season, and an opportunity came up at North Carolina Central University, where I went down and was the pitching coach down there. So I went from Division III to Division I as a coach. Within like 9 months, I coached a summer ball up in upstate New York for a collegiate team up there that I had played for when I was in college. And then I was in North Carolina on August 1st. And it was a lot, Division I's obviously a lot different from the Division III ranks. And I spent a year there, and then I had some family stuff going on back up here, up north. So I ended up coming back up here, and that was the end of my baseball career. That was it, really. I never really thought about it much. I came back up here and kind of started taking the music thing a little bit more seriously.
We're having a catch with Joey Witt tonight. If you have any questions for him, drop them in the comments, and we'll get to all your questions and comments later tonight. Now, we're going to transition into that music career.
Cool, man.
You had mentioned earlier that when you weren't drafted, like your first thought was, I got to pick up the guitar.
Yeah, to do something.
Did creative. Now, obviously, your baseball aspirations were as a young kid. At one point as a child, did you know that you also had an equal, if not greater, love for music?
It's very funny that you asked that, and I've loved music since the first time I saw the promo video for Revolution by the Beatles. That was like one of those moments in my music life. But I remember as equally obsessed from a young age as I was with baseball gloves. When my parents got me a guitar at around, I think it was probably 11 or 12, I just had to look at the magazines, and you used to have Baseball Express magazine. Well, you'd have the Sweetwater music catalog that would come out, and you'd just be looking through those things like crazy, studying the instrument, and I just became obsessed with it. And I remember looking at the table one day, or sitting at the table looking at one of those magazines one day, and my dad, he's a jokester, so he was making a comment about like, oh, you're looking at that and you're not out taking BP or not throwing, taking ground balls or something. And I went, well, I could probably do both. In my infinite wisdom as an 11-year-old, saying I could probably do both. And now here we are, 20-something years later, and it's been a crazy adventure, man. I'll tell you that much. It's been wild. The music stuff's happening pretty quick, so it's very fortunate just to be able to do a couple of things that not everybody gets to do.
Sure.
It's an absolute blast. So yeah, I mean that the Beatles moment was a huge one for me as a kid, where I was like, this is different. I don't know if everybody hears this band this way, but I certainly do. And that was really an eye-opener, life changer too.
Other than the Beatles, obviously, like we all love the Beatles. I grew up in a household where actually before I was even introduced to Beatles music, I was listening to like the solo Beatles stuff. Like
Oh,
Uh,
like McCartney and
McCartney, Lennon,
Imagine. Yeah.
Traveling
Oh
Wilburys.
yeah, great record. That one's great because
Even Ringo's stuff. That's what my dad was into in like the early '80s. Was
nice.
all that kind of solo stuff. He also loved like the Fabulous Thunderbirds and
Sure.
Zeppelin and stuff like that. What other types of music? Because I could talk. I mean, look, I could talk music all night. There's
Yeah.
not a day that goes by where I'm not listening to records or making playlists or whatever.
Nice, man.
What other types of music, or well, this could be bands or genres,
Sure.
were most influential for what you're doing today?
So I would say, let me think here. We always had a record player in the house, or CDs were kind of the new thing when I was really little. And I
Sure.
remember my dad had a vast collection of music. My mother had a massive record, like vinyl record collection. But there was always music playing in our house, and it was typically, the Beatles, but there was a lot of Elvis, a ton of Roy Orbison, stuff like that. And I think
Nice.
my sister went more down the Elvis route, and then I kind of started going into kind of finding my way into my own music when I was probably about 13 or 14 when I started taking guitar lessons. I think I always loved music and like listened to the radio and whatever was on in those days, whether it was, whatever the pop music was as a 9, 10, 11-year old. But when I
Sure.
really started learning guitar, funny story is my guitar teacher, who is now my lead guitar player in the Definition, brought over Nirvana Bleach, not Nevermind or In Utero, but the first Nirvana record.
Okay.
I don't think Dave Grohl's on that, but he showed me how to play About a Girl by Nirvana, and I went, "Wow, this is awesome! What is this music? It's crazy. It's not clean. It's kind of they're grungy, obviously." And then I started getting into, like anybody who really loves music, I think that whatever you hear on the radio or whatever the surface level is, you're going to dig deeper to find out what else there is. So I went down that track, and I don't listen to much Nirvana anymore. But trying to think, Radiohead is a band that completely changed things for me, and I've seen them
Sure.
a few times at Madison Square Garden. All of their records are phenomenal. None of them are the same, and they're all just as equally as brilliant. Wilco is another one. They're from Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, they're a big band that had a massive influence, and I've gotten to hang out with a couple of the guys in that band a few times over the years, and they're all sweethearts, awesome dudes. There's a band I think I lean more across the Atlantic than I do with music here, because I'm really into that whole Manchester music scene over in England. I love Oasis, and I love Liam's solo stuff and Noel's solo stuff too. But a band over there called Doves really that was another one of those moments where it's just like, wow, I hope everybody feels this way when they hear these songs. And so Doves was a massive one. That was a really big band, and there's so much good music over there. Joy Division, Richie, our buddy Richie loves Joy Division. But yeah, I think I'd certainly lean more that direction. There's not much rock and roll music that's promoted here these days. In the States, it seems like everybody's kind of gone in a different direction from guitar music. So it's nice to kind of see a place that's still focused on that sort of thing, what I enjoy. But I think it'll come back around here too. That what's that band? They're from out in the Midwest. Kind of sound like Led Zeppelin.
Oh, Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah, I think they're doing a pretty good job of bringing that kind of music back. Hey, some people, the purists out there, will say they're ripping off Led Zeppelin, and I'm like, well, man, Led Zeppelin ripped off a bunch of blues musicians from the 20s to 40s.
How can music not be a little bit derivative? I mean, it's almost impossible to be 100% original, because we all have influences in whatever we're doing.
I think it's all quite derivative of I mean, it's 12 notes, man. There's 12. That's it. You say what you can with 12 notes. So I think more these days it has to do with, wherever you're from in the world, whatever you're singing about. There's a lot of words you can use over those 12 notes. So I think like lyrics, lyrical content is is as important as your style or your melody and your chord structures and all that sort of thing. So, look, I almost think it's a compliment when somebody tells you, you sound like this, or, this sounds like that. I think you should, be like, well, okay, they must love that artist for me for them to say that. So, that's a compliment whenever somebody says anything like that.
I have a really good friend, and the first time I saw him play, this was probably 15, 16 years ago, and they were doing like a battle of the bands. And
Nice.
as soon as they were done, he went outside and he kind of looked stressed, and I wanted to comfort him. I said, "You guys were great." I don't even remember what the results were of the night, but one of the things that I said to him that night that I've never said to another musician again was, I said, "Hey, that song you did kind of sounded a little bit like Cake. I really dug it." And I thought he would be into that, and he kind of did like one of these. He's like, and I can tell I may have touched a little bit of a nerve. I don't know if he just was going for something completely different, or maybe he's heard that before, but since then I try not to make that connection immediately, because there's a story what's that song by the Police, Every Breath You Take.
Oh yeah.
Sting has said in interviews how many people have gone up to him and said, "Hey, I love that song. It was my wedding song." And he's like, "Yeah, maybe listen to the lyrics. That song is about stalking.
It's about a stalker." Yeah.
I worry about your marriage if.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes, because I'm a music fan, I took guitar lessons for about a month or two, and every lesson my mind was going elsewhere. I wanted to play baseball.
Yeah.
So in the middle of trying to learn chord progression and everything, I'd be thinking about my next game or going home and pitching. So it didn't last for me, but my love for music, I think, is as strong as it is for baseball, because I'm constantly listening to it. I'm just enchanted with albums.
Sure.
Like, it's fun. Like, the radio is great, and, making a playlist can be fun, but I love the
start to finish,
if it's a thematic record, if it's a concept, I love reading the liner notes and, picturing, like, I have this kind of weird imagination where I can take a 3-minute song and it's a movie in my head.
It's funny that you say that, because I think that's what, to me, music or a record is more like reading a book rather than watching like a TV series or a part of a movie or something like that. Because it's like, when you listen to an album, the artist, for the most part, I don't know about pop music or anything like that these days, because that seems to be more about the single. But in my world, we make records, we make albums that for the intended purpose is to, hey, track 1 through track whatever, 10, 12. You don't pick up a book, or at least I don't. I don't pick up a book and just read one chapter for entertainment or anything like that. You're trying to get the entire story out of it.
Sure.
So I think I encourage definitely listening to records, and even if you don't enjoy the track 1, listen to the whole thing and then make a decision based off of that, because you may pick up something or a part of a song that you truly do enjoy. But we live in a different world these days where if you're not being influenced to enjoy it,
sure,
then it's tough to find anything kind of organically. So I lean more that way myself, man.
And there is something to be said for, like, just the song. Like, I love the idea of a jukebox where I can hear a Tom Petty song, and then Prince, and then Elvis, and then Michael Jackson. I like that too, but I always gravitate towards the records. One of my and I know, like, some people are going to disagree with this. They might even leave the group. But for me personally, someone that takes an album, and we'll just say like a CD, because it doesn't really work with vinyl or cassettes. But if you take a CD, there's that shuffle option.
Sure, yeah, there is.
People that shuffle, like, and I'm not talking greatest hits, but I'm talking like, or compilations. But if you take an album that's meant to be listened to 1 through 12, and you shuffle it, to me, that's the same as like putting ketchup on a hot dog. As Hall and Oates would say, I can't go for that.
Oh man, yeah, I definitely like the experience to listen to it as the artist intends you to, or intended for the population to listen to it. I mean, I'm guilty of hitting shuffle once or twice just to see how, almost more of like an experiment, to be honest with you. Now that we
Sure.
talk about it, seeing how different songs line up, and there's this trick, and I don't know if anybody's ever heard it or if anybody in the group is a Radiohead fan, like I just mentioned, but if you take the record "OK Computer" and the
Yeah.
record, it's in rainbows, and you play
Sure.
one track from one and one from the next, it fits like a puzzle piece.
Oh, nice.
And it's pretty amazing because I didn't believe it at first. And I went through, I made the playlist in my phone, and I was like, oh my God, this does
Are you
work.
talking about track 1 and then track 1 and then 2 and
yeah,
2?
and I'm trying to think here. I wish I'm on my cell phone right now, but otherwise I'd look for it. But it's it's track 1. I think it's like Airbag. I think it might start with OK Computer. I think you play Airbag, and then it goes into 15 Step. So
Okay.
I think it goes that way. But it is remarkable, and they've never quite come out and said that that's what the intent was. But they are so smart and such brilliant artists and musicians, I wouldn't put it past them. But it is pretty cool to do stuff like that with music.
Sure.
I do enjoy that.
If you find that, send it to me, because I'll, even tonight or tomorrow, I'll listen to it that way and see what I hear. Because I'm a fan.
Wild.
I'm not a huge fan of theirs, but like there's a couple of the records. They actually did like a side project, I think in 2013. I forget what it was called. Something.
Atoms for Peace.
Atoms for Peace. Oh, I love that album.
Atoms for Peace. It's so good. Flea from the Chili Peppers on bass.
Yeah.
And actually, Tom and Johnny have a new band called The Smile that you might like.
Okay.
It's really cool. I don't think the record's out yet, but they put a couple singles out, and it's pretty cool stuff.
I gotta check it out.
Definitely fun. Yeah.
So let's talk about our boy Richie. How did you meet Richie?
I know Richie through Liverpool Football Club.
Okay.
And he has become one of my best pals over the years. We talk just about every day, and I can't wait to see him. But we haven't been able to travel much the last couple of years, but
sure.
I'll be seeing him soon. But yeah, he's just such a knowledgeable sports fan. He loves American sports. He has trouble picking teams, but he has got all the best reasons for picking American sports. And
sure.
It's really nice to see somebody from a culture that's so different grasp our athletics and really get into it. Because I can't imagine it's real easy for somebody from other parts of the world, if you're not from North America or Latin America, to get into baseball. I mean, it's kind of tough. Or I guess in Japan it's massive, and it's growing, certainly in the Far East as well. But from a country like Britain or Spain or Italy, getting into baseball, I think, is probably much tougher than, say, getting into the game if you're here, a young kid here in the States. So it's pretty cool to see him to really be a part of his journey diving into American sports. And he loves football and basketball, but we talk baseball all the time, and he knows more about it than I do now. So he's so into it.
Well, and he's going to have an announcement in the next couple days here within the Utopian Baseball universe.
I love it.
You guys are going to learn the name Richard Lunt really quick, as he's going to have his own show.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
I love that.
He's going to have his own show. It's completely his, and I'm very much looking forward to that. The reason I bring Richie up has really nothing to do with the show, because that's going to be his thing.
Yeah.
Is we have been, we've been talking. Him and I talk not every day, but we talk probably every other day or so. And so you guys collectively have thrown a little bit of a wrinkle into my moving plans, because I've been talking Pennsylvania now for 3 or 4 years.
Man,
and now
I say, bring it up to the nutmeg state, man.
Well, so you and I, when we formally met, you had told me that you are within the same distance from where you live to Boston as you are New York.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm right in the middle. in Connecticut, and it's about 90 miles in each direction. And it's pretty funny to see the Boston and New York, they often get paired together, but how culturally different they
They're
are
different.
as cities.
Yeah.
They're quite different. They're quite different, but there's so many similarities too, and they may not accept that, but it is between the accents and the food and
Sure.
just the general attitudes and stuff like that. They're both just wonderful, majestic places, and I love them both for their own individuality, I guess. I go to Boston every year for an event called Hot Stove Cool Music, and it's just a blast. It's a bunch of people who love baseball and rock and roll, and it's like when your worlds collide like that, it's hard to beat it. And we've got a pretty good following in New York City. For me as an artist, when we play down there, it's always just such a wonderful time. And I've been going there since I was 3 years old. I went to college there. I lived there for a period of time. It's hard to beat the feeling I get when I'm walking, down Avenue A, and you feel like you had a part in building that city. And
Sure.
and I can understand how some people get intimidated and they get nervous. And to me, it's just breathtaking. Every time you're down there, you feel 10 feet tall, or at least I do.
Yeah.
And I love Manhattan. It's such a good time. The Lower East Side is really kind of where we would call home for our music.
Sure.
But Boston in itself, man, when you're rolling into Fenway Park, it's tough to beat that atmosphere and that vibe. You can smell all the concession stands, and
Yeah.
it's really an amazing city.
I've never been to Boston. I love New York. I've actually visited
Yeah.
New York, I think 3 or 4 times. I love visiting there. I don't know if I personally could live in New York, because when I am in New York and I leave a building,
Yeah.
all I notice is like the next building. So I feel like I'm like in almost like a video game, and almost feel like, where's the sun? Where's the and then if I go the other way and I go towards like Strawberry Fields,
Yeah.
or Central Park, it's like I've a book and a beverage and the sun, like then I'm at peace.
Mm-hmm.
Then I start going back into town, and it's like, all right, now I'm an introvert. I don't make eye contact. I don't really socialize much. And like, there's people within 2 feet of each other. So I love visiting. And I think the appeal of Connecticut or Pennsylvania is that I'm 90 minutes, 2 hours away.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm also close to home, where I can kind of separate the two, because I love going to New York. I mean, I'm a Mets fan.
Man.
Look at this, man.
There you go. Go Stems. There you go.
Stems. My favorite
Stems.
is when they're struggling. The papers out there call them the New York mess.
That's a tough one. And they look like they're on the right track, though. I think they're coming around. I'd like to see them win a championship. I would.
I would too, my friend.
Yeah, that'd be really nice. I love Mike Piazza growing up too, so that was. I always see. I was spoiled as a kid. And I try to tell Richie this all the time: is that I had 3 massive organizations in my backyard between the Sox, the Yanks, and the Mets.
Yeah,
it was hard for me. It was really hard to choose one of them. So I kind of understand where he's coming from. I mean, they're all so close, and in New England and the tri-state area, because Connecticut's a part of both. We're kind of spoiled for choice with that. So I figured, I like all these teams. I like players from all these clubs. So I had a different jersey depending on what day of the week it was. And that didn't make me a fair weather fan. I was just supporting the locals, man.
and I always say, because I've been a Mets fan since '84, but I'm a baseball fan first. So
absolutely,
I was at a grocery store here about a mile away a couple weeks ago, and I was wearing a Yankees cap, and the guy said, "Oh, you're a Yankees fan," and I'm like, "No, it just matches my shirt, matches my gray shirt," and I just felt like I said, "I'm actually a Mets fan." He goes, "How can you be a Mets fan and wear a Yankees cap?" I said, "Because I'm a baseball fan. I got one or two from every team. I love baseball. I am a Mets fan, but I'll rock a Expos hat.
Sure.
Old school Washington Senators.
I always enjoyed that too, man. It was being a baseball fan first, because it was as big as this game has gotten to where there's the MLB Network now. You can watch players from all over. You can be a Ohtani fan. So now you got kids walking around Connecticut with, Angels shirts on and stuff like that. But the big guy on the West Coast when I was a kid was, the kid, Ken Griffey Jr., and there's not a sweeter swing in baseball than that guy's. But he was, I always had a Ken Griffey Jr. jersey too because I thought that was awesome. He was great, and he was a Mariner, literally on opposite sides of the country.
Yeah.
But that never bothered me. I never really felt obligated to support just one team as far as baseball went. Now with soccer, obviously, I'm a diehard Liverpool Football Club fan. But, I think that also goes into having played the game of baseball. I didn't care. I just wanted to play for somebody, and kind of worked out that way. So that was cool.
So tell us, where can we find the music, and what's the latest going on with the band?
Okay, yeah. So anything related to me and the music could be found at joeywit.com, JOEYWIT.com. On Instagram, I would love if you guys followed me on Instagram. It's at Joey_Wit, JOEY_WIT. And then we have a Facebook page here, and I linked it earlier, and that's just Joey Wit and the definition. But I'd love if you guys liked and followed all those things. That'd be wonderful. It would mean the world. Spotify, iTunes. Oh, can we still say Spotify with Mr. Young's departure? Hey, man.
I'm convinced. Yeah. I'm convinced by the end of 2022, every human on some level is going to get canceled. Because I said the last show I did last week on Having a Catch, I stole a fruit roll-up in first grade. And if that cost me this group at some point, that's on me. But I gave it back. I did when I took it, I didn't know who I was taking it from. I just saw it on a desk.
Yeah.
And then I saw a girl I had a crush on cry, and I immediately threw it. I threw it to the teacher, and as if to say, like, this was on me. She winked at me, and she talked to me later. She's like, "You did the right thing," but something at some point is going to.
Turns out that little girl's a state senator now, and you're done.
Oh my God, Michelle Dohan, if you're watching, I don't think you are. You got the fruit roll up back, and I'd be happy to send you 6 more if we can just bury this under the rug here. But
yeah, man. To finish answering the music question, the first record is called Eastern Standard, and that one is available on iTunes and Spotify, Amazon Music. It's on YouTube, I think. You can listen to the songs on there. And honestly, I just got back to my home office here from the studio. So we're in the midst of making a second LP, and we recorded the first one, and we're recording the second one, all to analog tape. So it's a pretty cool throwback style of recording rather than the digital computers and all that sort of thing, which is a wonderful method to record, and I'm not knocking that at all, but it's kind of nice to be able to do it like our heroes did, like the Beatles and Stones and the Who and all those cats recorded in the 60s and 70s. That's kind of what we're doing. Sure. So yeah, that record's coming along pretty nicely. I was just doing some vocals tonight. But you can listen to the first one and follow along to see when the second one's coming out. But I've got some stuff in the works, some cool shows happening. Hopefully get to hit the road a little bit and play some songs for some people in cities that I have never played in before. So all good stuff.
If you make it out this way, I'm about 90 minutes north of Chicago.
Nice.
So if you're ever in the Midwest, Chicago area, Milwaukee,
man,
you'll see
me
out there.
We'll make that happen.
I'll be the first one in line.
There you go.
And I want to tell you, like, I've had so much fun talking to you tonight. If you ever want to play, I've had musicians just have a show here. Dan Byrne played 2 songs on opening day last year on the first episode of this series. Him and his daughter sang. So you have carte blanche. You can take over. You can just text me the night before and say, I'm doing a 50-minute show tonight for the universe.
Live stream? That'd be
doing
cool,
a live
man.
stream. Yeah, you have free reigns to do that. And I would love to have you, on future shows again. I've had so much fun talking to you tonight.
Absolutely, Joey. It's been a blast, man. I'm really happy we got to do this and talk a little bit. So it's nice to be able to connect with all the people, and I hope some people follow along, listen to the music, and come to a gig if we're ever around, or if you're on the East Coast, we'll be here. We're playing. Come check it out.
All right. So tonight we're having a catch with Joey Wit, and again, you can find all his music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, his website. Really had a good time tonight, Joey. And I'm gonna make. I tell you what, I haven't. I don't think I've made a promise to anyone that I've done the show with. I think I've made
Yeah.
some of these for people, but tonight I'm making a custom baseball card
Oh,
of
nice,
you, my
man.
friend. I'm gonna send it
That
to
would
you
be
tonight.
cool. That'd be boss, man. Oh, you told me to convince you to move to Connecticut.
Yeah, give me a couple reasons why
right.
Connecticut over Pennsylvania.
I only need one reason.
Yeah, give it to me.
Pizza.
Pizza's good out there?
Connecticut pizza, and I don't use this word very often,
All right.
is the best pizza in the world.
Damn. I'm
The
sold.
best pizza. You can look it up. You can take it to the bank. Do whatever you need to. Connecticut pizza is outrageously good. Pepe's
Now-
Pizza, New Haven style in particular.
What makes it? What makes? Because Milwaukee does it pretty good too. What makes Connecticut the best?
Oh man, it's something in the, I don't know if it's the water or the air or just the people who make it in New Haven's hands or what, but there is, what's the fella off of Barstool called? Dave something?
Portnoy.
Yeah, he called New Haven, Connecticut the pizza capital of the world because it is that good. And man, I lived in New York and I love New York pizza, but New Haven pizza, Sally's, Pepe's, Modern, Delania, Bar, there's a place called Marco Polo. Endless Pizza is outrageous. It's always in the top 10, I think, in the world rankings. You got to come out just for the pizza.
Well, I tell you what, in 2016, I moved to a city. It took me I was living in Cleveland, Ohio. It took me 6 months. This is no joke. It took me 6 months to find a good pizza.
Oh man, you can't spit without hitting a pizza shop in Connecticut, man.
I actually, the day I finally found something I liked was the Super Bowl Sunday, 2017. It was that Patriots-Falcons game, the 28-3. And I told him the next day, I said, this is the best pizza I've ever had since I moved back. This is going to be my chain. And then about a month later, I was gone.
Oh man.
I had to move back. But all right, that's enough reason for me, I think. The fact that you're
coming out.
All right.
I tell you what, if you come out this summer, we'll take a trip up to Boston, and then we'll go down to New York. We'll catch 2 games, and we'll eat as much pizza as we can.
All right. Well, we're going to make that official right now. This is going to happen at some point. That's probably the only word that could have convinced me. Because Philly's got some good pizza too. But I've seen a lot of Portnoy's pizza reviews, and a lot of them seem to be in Connecticut.
He's done a bunch. He got convinced, but there's so many good ones. Not just even outside of New Haven. Roseland Pizza. My buddy Johnny owns a place called Trackside Deli, and he makes pizza out of there that is just incredible. Everywhere you go in this state seems to have good pizza. Granda Pizza down on the shoreline's amazing. We got good seafood too here in the Northeast.
Good seafood.
We got all the lobsters coming down from Maine. So
there you go.
Really good stuff, man.
Well, the needle has been shifted.
Hey,
Connecticut.
And then you could say you live in New England, and there's just something nice about saying you're from New England.
Well, and all right, but now one thing, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, so that's not going to change.
Yeah. That's okay. One of my best friends growing up is a Browns fan. He's living out in California now, but my buddy Dave is a massive Cleveland Browns fan, and he's a huge baseball fan. Matter of fact, I got to get him on the show because I think you'd find his life very, very interesting.
What's his name?
Dave Giglio.
Get Dave in the group, and I'm booking season 2 right now, and hopefully this goes 20 years. So I'd love to talk to Dave. And
yeah, man,
absolutely. All right, buddy. Well, like I said, it was great getting to formally meet you and get the universe to get to know you a little bit better. We'll definitely have you on again. Joey Witt, check him out on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the socials, Instagram. And next Tuesday, I'm having a catch with Jacob Moses. We got 2 things in common. We're both Mets fans, and we both grew up on wrestling. So we're going to talk.
That's huge.
It's going to be like 2 12-year-olds just talking wrestling and talking about Mets heartbreak for about an hour.
Oh, man. I want to tune into that one because I was a massive WCW/WWF at the time fan growing up. So that'd be huge. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We did a pre-interview yesterday, and I almost couldn't stop it. I was like, oh, we got to save it for the show because it's so
Yeah, man.
opinionated on what's going on. But thanks again to Joey. Check him out on all the socials, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday with Jacob Moses.
Thanks,
Have a good night,
Joey.
everyone.
Take care, everybody. Good night.